Damon Martin, MMA fighting here with top 5 ranked UFC lightweight coming off his fight with Charles Oliveira at UFC 262. I welcome back Michael Chandler. Michael, welcome back. Thank you so much for doing this. And I got to be honest, man, like I texted you right after the fight. I'm sure you got bombarded with messages, but I texted you right after the fight. And typically I like to leave guys alone after a fight. You got family time, you got things going on. But you've really attacked this in a way that it's just so uncommon in this sport. And I can't say thank you enough. And I appreciate you doing this.
Of course, man. Yeah. This mixed martial arts journey is just that, man. It's a journey, and we're not defined by the wins. We're not defined by the losses. It's, I made some mistakes back in the day when I had my first loss, and it really turned into a lost streak. If you hide from losses, if you try to shield yourself from them or shield yourself from talking about them, they become self-fulfilling prophecies of future losses and future, self-deprecating circumstances. So I just want to get past it, but I also want to shed light on the fact that this loss was an event. It's not a person. A failure is an event, not a person. I lost at UFC 262, May 15th, the greatest opportunity of my life, but a lot of good has come from it. We recalibrate, we reassess, and we get ready for this comeback.
Absolutely. Let's start there because I've been lucky enough to pretty much cover your entire career. I think our first interview was right around your first fight with Bellator. I mean, we go back many, many years. So I remember that time with the Eddie Alvarez rematch and then the Will Brooks fights. And it does feel like a completely like night and day in terms of your mentality. How much did you learn about yourself during that time period that you were able to use that for a fight like this? And I absolutely take nothing away from the Brent Primus fight. I know that was a tough one, but that was an injury. That was a freak occurrence. I don't really count that as a loss. No offense to Brent Primus. This one obviously is different. So can you kind of give me a sense of like the Michael Chandler of those 3 fights versus the Michael Chandler I'm talking to right now?
Yeah, I think there has just been a maturation process. And also I just think I'm not defined by the sport as much, as athletes or as mixed martial artists, we can find ourselves in a position where we are defined by our performances. We are defined by the limits that are put on us, or even the positive things of this sport that they bring, the platform and the following and the eyeballs and the bright lights and the checks and the platform that we are given. We get defined by these moments. We get defined by these things that put us up on a pedestal. But man, I'm just a normal everyday guy. I'm a blue collar kid from the middle of nowhere, Missouri, son of a carpenter, son of a secretary. And, I realized very quick after I had that first loss to Eddie Alvarez back in 2011, I wasn't prepared to lose. I was prepared physically, but I wasn't prepared mentally in my mind to lose. And that loss led to 2 other subsequent losses, 688 days. I went without winning a fight. And I made a couple mistakes back then. The first mistake I said I already kind of touched on was that I hid from the mistake. I hid from the loss. Media was calling me. The World MMA Awards were calling me. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to hide from it. I wanted to be surrounded by my 4 walls in the comfort of my own home. And then secondly, I forgot how good I was. I forgot how powerful I was and how strong I was and how good of an athlete I was, because I let that loss define me. And I let that loss become the story that was playing in my head, that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And then the third mistake I made was I found comfort in sitting around and eating a bowl of ice cream and not working out and getting comfortable in self-pity and blaming it on other people. And I blame this completely on myself, man. I took one on the chin, didn't have my hand up, and Charles Oliveira was able to finish me. I was very close to finishing him in the first round, which probably makes it even harder to accept the fact that I was within a split second or 1 second or one more punch of becoming the UFC lightweight champion. But I lost in the second round. I got finished in the second round. And I'm taking full ownership of that. I've been in contact with my coaches, promising them that I'm going to be more disciplined in my striking. I'm going to be more disciplined in my approach to the game, and we can make some adjustments. We go back to the drawing boards. I by no means am anywhere close to being done with this sport, and I think I gained a lot of respect over the last couple of weeks, and a lot of fanfare and a lot of support. I have a lot of great people that have been on this journey with me for a long time, so I enjoy that. I enjoy the support. I even enjoy taking the loss and getting the black eye and seeing the replays and seeing my failure being broadcast to millions of people at the biggest moment of opportunity. But I know I did everything that I possibly could. So I really have no regrets. And the better man won that night on May 15th. And I by no means am even close to being done. And I'll probably fight Charles Oliveira again. I don't know if it'll be for the title, but I will be fighting for and winning the UFC strap in the next 12 months.
I love it. Let me ask you this, Michael, because, your career is not defined by just wins or losses. It's a whole story that goes into it, and your story is far from written. But I think about some great moments in our sports history. I remember when Cody Garbrandt beat Dominic Cruz, I was at that fight in Las Vegas, and I remember Dominic coming back and talking to us afterwards, and that was heartbreaking for him. He had been a bantamweight champion to come back from so much to get to that point. And then he lost. And I just remember the way he addressed it. It was almost like we were all able to move on. There was no questions at that point. He addressed it so eloquently, and it was so brave in a way to address it because, again, no one expects that necessarily you're going to do that. Do you feel like in a weird way, this is like a cathartic moment? Like this is almost therapy for you to address it now, kind of take it on the chin of what happened, and that'll actually make it easier to move on.
100%. So, I don't want to misconstrue this as this is just my duty. I do think I have a duty, and I owe it to the fans and my supporters and my people that have been around me to address it, to be able to move forward and to, I was on with MMA On Point on Tuesday, breaking my fight down frame by frame, telling people what was going through my head, how the fight happened, what was going on. And these are things that fighters don't do, whether it's ego driven or, we do deserve time off. Truthfully, I spent the better part of the last 12 months away from my family. I'm here home in Nashville and I love it, but I've spent the better part of the last 12 months away from my family. I owe it to my family to be with them. And I even owe it to myself to take a little bit of time off and take a breather. But to me, I don't know any other way besides moving forward, besides progressing, besides continuing to move forward in this course of action. And for me, addressing the loss, I owe it to the fans and the people that have supported me. And truthfully, like I said, I want to be transparent. This is therapy for me. I do know that I made some mistakes back in the day and I hid from the loss and I wanted to shield myself from it out of protection for myself when really it was doing the exact opposite. And you look at any 12-step program across the world, whether it be addiction or whether it be in business where people make mistakes or in whatever vocation that they choose, the number one step always is admitting it to yourself. Number one, I have to admit that I lost. I have to admit that I have a problem, or I have to admit that I have an addiction, or I have to admit that I have self-limiting beliefs. Then and only then can I open the door to the ownership that is needed, the accountability and the responsibility that is needed to grow from it, to go back to the drawing board, to reassess and recalibrate, to take this setback and look at it as a setback and as a moment that is just the necessary coiling of a spring to spring me into a better version of myself. And I do think I have learned how to embrace the process, knowing that, fight week leading up to UFC 262, I was 100% confident in my preparation, 100% confident in the steps and the requisite sacrifices that I made and that I took to make sure that I put myself in the best situation possible to win at UFC 262. And I have no regrets, and I left no stone unturned. So I really have nothing to be ashamed of, and I have nothing to be afraid of. I'm taking a lot of guff from certain people who say, man, just move on from the loss. Stop talking about the loss. And that's fine. Or even people think that this is the UFC pushing me in the media. I've seen a couple of people say that the UFC hasn't talked to me one time about doing any interview. I reached out to you. I reached out to MMA On Point. I did the Bussin' with the Boys podcast on Monday after I got home on Sunday in order to rip off the Band-Aid. I've spoken with Brett Okamoto. I've done these different media opportunities because it's a way for me to move on. It's a way for me to past the guard, the changing of the guard into this little season of rest, into my next training camp and into my next opportunity. But I can't move on to those things until I admit my faults, admit my past, and admit my failure on May 15th, just a couple of weeks ago, to be able to move forward. And I enjoy the process. I enjoy people like yourself, the opportunity that I have and the voice that I have and the platform that I have. And if it inspires and motivates a couple people out there who said, you know what, I have been hiding from my loss. I have been so ashamed of what other people would think of my loss or what other people might say to me after I open the door and go outside these four walls into public. I've had those thoughts too. I'm afraid to go see my friends or these other obligations or these other people on my team, or just being seen in public at the gym. I've been at the YMCA or working out at gyms, and people are going to bring it up, and it's okay. I lost, but I am not a failure. It was a failure on May 15th, but I am not a failure, and I can move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you about the fight. I watched that breakdown. So I'm not going to go through point by point and ask you to go back through it again, but now that you've had a chance to go back and rewatch the fight and think about it, and obviously, see what went right, see what went wrong, because by no stretch of the imagination, in my opinion, was it a bad performance. You had a phenomenal first round, very close to finishing him, and credit to Charles for coming back. That was the knock on him for the longest time in his career. When he was down, he had a tough time coming back, and that was reality. We talked about that before the fight. And again, credit to him for being able to come back. But when you look at the fight as a whole, obviously it didn't go your way. That's disappointing. But can you still take away positives from the performance?
Absolutely. I mean, if just to start from a 30,000 foot view, just 7-8 months ago, I was signed with Bellator. I was the outside the UFC guy. People didn't know how I was going to perform coming over to the UFC. I knock out number 5 and Dan Hooker, who hadn't been finished in his career, to the head. I get the opportunity to fight for the world title. Leading up to the world title, I felt absolutely phenomenal. I felt like I was the guy. I felt like I could be the guy. I felt like when I said things in the media, like, I plan on beating Charles Oliveira, becoming the face of the lightweight division, a good steward for the lightweight division, a good ambassador for the sport, an ambassador for the lightweight division moving forward. I believe these things in my heart. Did it come true? No, I didn't. I didn't win. It's part of it, but I truly believed it. So I think there's so many things I can take. I draw and glean confidence from the huge amount of media obligations that I had, the fight week that I had, the being the center of attention on a UFC pay-per-view, headlining a pay-per-view in a world title fight, just my second fight in the UFC. A lot of guys would crumble in those situations. And I don't say that to impress anybody. I just say that to impress upon the viewers and the listeners and even you as you ask the question. I believe I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I can now move forward with that confidence. And yeah, I got caught and I lost. I was in the thick of it, man. Charles Oliveira was the number 3 guy in the world. Now he's the number 1 guy in the world. I have 1 loss in the UFC, and I had a 10-8 round against him. Charles Oliveira hadn't lost a round since 2017, and I had a 10-8 round against him within 1 minute, 1 inch of finishing him in the first round and getting that UFC belt. Some negatives I can take, or some learning experiences. Yeah, I need to keep that right hand up. If I'm going to go 1-2, that right hand needs to come back quicker. If I'm going to go to the body, that right hand needs to come quicker. Maybe even this past weekend, I didn't watch the fights, but I saw the Twitter and how well Rob Font did, and everybody kept talking about his jab. He has the best jab in MMA, which every time someone sees someone with a great jab in this sport, it's like, oh, it's the best one in MMA because it's the most recent one they've seen. I needed to maybe get behind the jab more. I needed to maybe let the fight progress a little bit. I wouldn't say that I came in overconfident or overzealous. You've been watching me for over a decade. You know that's my style. You know I'm going to get in people's faces. And you know that's why I'm going to be an exciting, keep you on the edge of your seat, fan favorite kind of guy, because win, lose, or draw, I've never been in a boring fight. But maybe I could have been a little bit more methodical. Maybe I could have been a little bit more patient. But when you're fighting a guy like Charles Oliveira, who I thought I was going to be able to press him, and he was going to head down as I was coming up in that fight as it progressed, I had every reason to believe that I keep my foot on the gas and I win that fight. And if I don't get caught in that second round, maybe I finish him in the second, maybe I finish him in the third. We don't know how it would have happened. I got caught. I lost the fight, got TKO'd. It's just part of it. So a lot of positives we can take from it. It was the biggest stage, biggest opportunity in the sport. I think some people forget that too. Fighting for a UFC title is the pinnacle of pressure, the pinnacle of eyeballs, the pinnacle of the brightest of lights, the pinnacle of being in the position where the whole MMA world is watching. And I thought I performed fine, got caught. I thought I felt fine, I got caught. I thought I felt confident and I was right where I needed to be, and the fight didn't go my way. It's just part of it. And you can't love and embrace the highs of this sport without also accept the lows and the uncertainty that can happen inside that UFC octagon. And I feel great. Need a couple months to cool the jets and obviously heal up a little bit and make sure I don't get back in that octagon anytime, too soon. And I think I fight one more fight, beat somebody in the top 5, and I'm talked about right away in title contention again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a weird question to ask and probably a weird one to answer, Michael, but going into the fight, you had those, the naysayers saying that, you're one fight into your career, you shouldn't have been fighting for the title, blah, 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 blah. I think we saw in that fight, you absolutely did deserve to be there in the title, and you were, seconds away from potentially becoming champion. Again, credit to Charles for sticking around and coming back in the second round. But in a weird way, and as bizarre as this sounds, like if you become champion, obviously it would have been great, amazing. But in a weird way, do you feel like you turned a corner with a lot of those kind of like, questionable fans who are wondering, like, is Michael Chandler legit? Like the way you're handling the loss and the way you performed in that fight, like in a weird way, do you feel like you turned a corner with a lot of people, proving who you are, and people that maybe questioned, did you belong in there? You absolutely belonged in there. You got caught in the second round, but I think any questions that were remaining about you got answered on Saturday night. Even though it was a loss, I think every question got answered.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and you know me, man. I've been, we've been at this for a long time covering my fights, and I'm just marching to the beat of my own drum. Doing these things might be different than the way 90% of people would handle it. Right away, doing the things that I've done after a loss, the positivity through the loss, or even I've come out publicly and said, you know what, there was a part of me, albeit a very small part, but there was a part of me that said, you know what, this sport, you have to pull yourself away from it and not be so selfish in it and think, okay, this sucks. I lost this fight. I believe I deserved to win this fight, but man, good for Charles Oliveira. Like I honestly had a inkling of good for him. Like you see guys clap for their opponent after they lose and whatnot. That was a genuine clap. Like good for you, man. Hats off to you. You've been in the UFC since 2010. This was a dream come true for you. And here we go. I'll build myself back up. I've built myself back up and dusted myself off and pulled myself from much deeper holes than I'm in right now. I don't even think I'm in a hole. I think this was an opportunity to show a little bit of me losing. Me losing now means that the other guys in the top 5 might actually say yes to fight me. Justin Gaethje might say yes to fight me. Some of these other guys might say yes to fight me now. And so I've been, looked at now like one of the guys. I came in, I fought twice in the UFC, lost in a world title fight. I by no stretch of the imagination don't have the most amazing run of fights coming up ahead of me. If I'm in the top of this division, the Gaethjes and the Fergusons, the Dariushs, the Poiriers, the Connors, man, just ridiculous names that I get to fight over the next couple of years. And I believe I'll wear the UFC strap. So there's the amount, because I've always said it's never been about proving the doubters wrong. It's always been about proving my supporters and my support system correct. But it is really great when I get messages from people that say, man, I really didn't like you when you came into the UFC. I really wasn't a fan of you. I really didn't like how the UFC was pushing you, which all of that I didn't ask for. The UFC just decided to do what they did. But, they say, I really didn't like you when you first came in, but now you've really grown on me. I saw this interview. I saw the way that you are with your son, or I saw what you stand for. I saw the way that you fight. And I saw even though you lost this fight, it was still a great fight. I was entertained, or I lost a little bit of money on you, but that's my fault for gambling. Well, blah, blah, blah. Those are really great messages, because I do believe, I'm chipping away at the walls that people put up between myself and them. And the way I carry myself, the way I write this story, and the way that I paint on this masterpiece every single day through interviews and media, through the things I'm doing as a fitness as a guy in the fitness world, as a fighter, as a father, husband. I believe it's going to continue to pay dividends, and I just am who I am. And I'm marching to the beat of my own drum. And if people like it, they can hop on and be a part of it. And if they don't, then we'll keep winning anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. To that point, Michael, listen, we are a sport built upon what have you done for me lately and what are you doing next? You could be holding that title right now and you could be 5 seconds after the knockout and immediately someone's going to say, so what's next? What are you doing? Obviously you deserve some downtime. I mean, before I get to what's next, so this is such a broad question, but can you kind of encapsulate for me what this last, 8 months has been like for you now that you were here? Because it's crazy when you think about it, from your last fight in Bellator, knocking out Benson Henderson, going into free agency again, inking a deal with the UFC, having some guys, not want to fight you. You get pulled in to be the alternate for the title fight with Khabib and Justin. You're flying halfway around the world, cutting weight, doing interviews, not knowing if you're fighting, going back home again. You finally get to fight in January. You're on what is going to end up being one of the biggest cards of the year. You knock out Dan Hooker, you get into a title fight. I mean, is it kind of like, can you wrap your head around what the last 8 months have been like for you now?
I can't wrap my head around it, honestly, because I think it's bigger than I actually think it is because I'm in it. And I've always looked at it like, I'm going to be put in great scenarios and great situations to be put on this platform and enjoy this ride. And, the last 13 years have been really, really awesome. So much fun, but the last 8 months have definitely been the most fun and the most rejuvenated and the most alive I've felt in a very long time. There was a couple of years there when I was with Bellator that I wasn't necessarily unhappy. I just felt like, it had become stagnant, and I really wanted to chase the dream of becoming the number one lightweight in the world. And I really wanted to back up what I was saying, believing I was one of the best in the world. And now I get to prove it. And not only do I get to prove it, but I get to prove it on the biggest platform. And I've been given, some marquee spots inside the organization when it comes to, the backup on Khabib's retirement party, which we didn't know it was his retirement party at the time. And then the Conor Poirier card. And then now obviously headlining UFC 262. These are all huge opportunities with a huge amount of eyeballs, obviously, which it comes with a lot of scrutiny, but we're working through all of that as well. And I take that, it comes with the territory. So I can't really quantify it, and I don't really like to stop and smell the roses because I do look at the platform as it grows. I do look at the eyeballs as they grow. I do look at and take to heart the opportunity I had at fighting for a UFC title and headlining a pay-per-view. Those are huge opportunities, but I'm nowhere near content. And I believe when I hang up my gloves for the last time, in the next couple of years down the road, I want to have a season after that when I can look back and assess how much I put into this sport, because I believe I've put my entire life, my entire being into it. And I do want to stop and smell the roses every now and then, pat myself on the back when necessary. But for the most part, I just want to keep moving forward and enjoy it. And whatever's next with me and my UFC career and my title hunt, getting back to that title hunt, it'll be, sometime in the near future, and we'll figure it out as it comes. We'll figure out who it is, where it is, what's on the line, what's at stake. But every single day, I'm just trying to be a better human being. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better fighter, a better businessman, and secure a future for my family that they deserve. And so that's really what I'm just focused on. I was down in Florida this past weekend. It wasn't just a vacation. It was a business trip as well. That we're looking at some properties and stuff down there. This week, we got some other stuff we're working on. My wife and I just never stop, and that's the way we like it. So I don't like to stop too much. Smell the roses. We'll keep moving forward and what may.
Yeah. So when you talk about what's next, I mean, the biggest factor right now is getting you time to rest, because even though, obviously you want to have time to recover from a knockout, you want to give your head time to recover, things like that. But also you've had, just as I said, a whirlwind of 8 months. I mean, you cut weight 3 times, you cut weight for a championship fight that you didn't fight. Then you obviously had to do it again in January, do it again in May. That takes a toll on the body, all the travel and everything. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to argue you deserve a vacation, but I also know you are a guy when the UFC calls or whenever you've been fighting, they call, you answer. And so I know that's how you are. So what is your mentality in terms of time? Like, do you have it in your head? Like, hey, I want to take a couple of months, kind of decompress, spend some time with the family, and then, come back towards the end of the year. Are you even thinking about that yet? Because again, I think you deserve a little time off before you actually book a fight, but that's just me. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And because, you understand the sport. I mean, if this was just, if this was a sport in which we don't take damage to the head or don't take, subsequent blows to the head. I mean, a lot of it is training and sparring. And when you're in training camp for 9, 10 out of 12 months, you're doing a decent amount of sparring. And I've tried to cut back as I get older. I don't think we need to spar as hard as the guys of yesteryear sparred. So I have taken really good care of my body. From a body standpoint, man, I just turned 35. I feel like I'm 25 years old, man. With the right supplementation, with the right workout regimen, with the right recovery tools and the recovery program, man, the body will last a lot longer than you think it will. Man, this last training camp was phenomenal. My knees, my ankles, my joints, my elbows, neck, the common areas where guys are beat up and getting surgeries and this kind of stuff, man, I'm golden, so it's more just, not taking a pounding to the head, and focus on my health for a couple months and get back into training camp sometime in the fall before the end of the year. I will fight before the end of the year. I will have come into the UFC and in a matter of 14 months, fought 3 times and was the backup at the world title fight 1 time. And that's pretty darn good on a resume when it comes to, people deciding whether or not you earned it or whether or not you put your time in. I know I haven't put my time in the UFC organization for the last 13 years. I was outside the organization for over a decade. But you can't deny the fact that as soon as I came into the UFC, I came in with my work boots on, and not just work boots on, but they were strapped up. They were double knotted and ready to work. Just like my dad did as a union carpenter for the last 30 something years. So, take a month or so off and the UFC will be calling very soon. We've already spoken to them a little bit, talking about timeline, who it might be, when it might be. And, we'll make some decisions. There'll be some announcements, and just rest assured, every single day I'm doing something to get better and doing something to take steps towards getting that UFC title shot again.
Yeah. I know you kind of addressed this in another interview, Michael, when they brought up Justin Gaethje, because Dana, of course, mentioned that would be a fight. I tweeted it right after the fight. I said, listen, I think that's the natural fight to make. Both guys coming off title fights. That's a fight we all wanted to see when you came in the UFC. There were 2 matchups I pinpointed. Three matchups I pinpointed when you signed with UC. Khabib, which unfortunately, again, that's probably not going to happen. He's retired. Good for him. Gaethje and Poirier. Those are the 2 other matchups. I was like, at some point we need to see Michael Chandler against those guys. I know that you said it's timing right now because Justin has, I assume he'd want to fight sooner because October will be a year for him. I don't think anyone wants to sit out for a year. And from the sound of things, you're not planning on fighting this summer. So it might be a timing thing where Gaethje is not available, but taking that out of the equation, can I imagine Gaethje would be a fight you'd welcome?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think Gaethje Chandler is probably the biggest fan favorite fight on the entire planet right now. I think he becomes a part of my highlight reel, or I become part of his highlight reel, and both of us come forward and enjoy a good old fashioned passionate scrap. That's how he's wired. That's how I'm wired. Justin Gaethje's been on the tips of the UFC's tongue, our tongue, myself and my management since we signed with the UFC. It just hasn't worked out that way for numerous different reasons. Timing right now, like you said, is the issue. I just fought, 8 days ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was. He hasn't fought in 8 or 10 months at this point. So it's going to be more of a timing thing. You got Beneil Dariush, who just fought. Obviously, he wants some time off, I think, because of his family. Like, who knows? All I know is the top 5 in the UFC is a plenty when it comes to talent, and it's a fight that I would welcome. It's just got to make sense on the timeline. And I'll tell you what, some people will be chomping at the bit to see that fight.
It's funny because when I mention names to you, I know the answer is always going to be yes. What about Beneil Dariush? Yes. What about Conor or Poirier? Yes. Like, I know that about you. Like, I know it's never going to be like, well, Maybe not. No, I know if they call you and say, hey, will you fight Dustin Poirier? Yes. Will you fight Justin Gaethje? Yes. So I know that's your mentality.
Yeah, that's what it's been since day one. And people can talk about, Tony Ferguson, or they can talk about these other things, and people, act like I came in and said no to, I said no to 0 fights. When the UFC is called, I have 100% yes rate, 100% success rate. As I said, work boots are always on. Even now, work boots are on. They're just, they're more of a indoor in the gym type of work boot right now, compared to, actually being in the training camp and in that UFC octagon, taking care of my body and continuing on this fitness journey. But I'm always pretty much ready. As of right now, I just need a little bit of time to make sure I'm safe to be getting back into competition, because I do have a son, and I do want to expand my family, and I do have a wife, and I've made promises to these two to take and have and hold and cherish for a lifetime, not just a couple of years. So got to be smart, but we got some big time scraps, some big time fights, and some big time opportunities ahead of us in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I know you don't name names. I'm not going to name names, but I know you know this, and obviously I know this from behind the scenes. You're not a guy who turns down fights, but you and I both know there were guys who turned you down since you signed with the UFC. I'm not going to mention names, but I know this for 100% guaranteed fact. There have been guys who turned you down. So in terms of turning people down, that's not your business.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's why I did say, man, I take my hat off to Dan Hooker for taking that fight. It was a fight with not much to gain and everything to lose. And luckily for me, I came out with the win. But now, as we said, maybe this lightweight division will start saying yes to the guy who just is coming off of a loss. And I maybe, humanize myself, or they saw holes in my game, or they saw, some chinks in my armor. Maybe guys will say yes and say, okay, I'll fight Chandler now. I think it's also, now I'm one of the guys. There's no doubt that when you see me in my UFC gear, you see me in my UFC gloves, you see me inside the octagon, you see the pictures, people say, okay, that guy's part of the UFC now. He's not just a newcomer. I've been in this organization now for almost a year, got in some big high profile opportunities. I'm one of the guys. Now beat me if you can.
Yeah, I know you're not a guy who reacts to negativity necessarily, and I'm definitely not the guy who plays that he said, she said game. But I remember going into the Dan Hooker fight, a lot of people said, well, Chandler's not ready for the UFC. I mean, he's a Bellator guy. He's not ready for Dan. Dan Hooker's this tall, rangy striker. He's going to use his knees, and he's just not ready for that. And then you go out and knock him out. And I'm sure you saw, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But Eddie Alvarez said recently he thought that Justin Gaethje was a bad matchup for you, and you should avoid that fight. Now, I disagree wholeheartedly with that statement. I like Eddie very much, but I disagree wholeheartedly with that statement. But whether it's Eddie Alvarez or anyone else, do you always anxiously await the chance to prove people wrong? I know you said you do it for your supporters, not for the doubters, but there is a sweetness in that, right? Like when someone tells you someone's a bad matchup for you, I get the feeling, knowing you're like, okay, bring them on. Let's do it.
For sure. I mean, well, number one, you can't look at the top 5, top 6 guys and not say there's scenarios where we are all bad matchups for each other and we're all good matchups for each other. It's all the upper echelon, the top, top 5, top 6 on the entire planet at a certain weight class. But I'll tell you this, if Eddie Alvarez can beat Justin Gaethje, I can definitely beat Justin Gaethje. And I won't just TKO him. I believe I'll knock Justin Gaethje out cold. And I'll keep a high pace just like Eddie did. It'll be a very fun fight. It's a fight that people want to see. So, I appreciate Eddie. Eddie's a guy that I spent almost 50 minutes in the cage with. We never got that trilogy to happen. So, maybe sometime down the line, if we can make it happen, but it's all part of it. But you got to respect Eddie, man. Eddie's a legend. He is 100% a Hall of Famer when it comes to lightweights, one of the greatest lightweights of all time. So I'm going to have a conversation with him. We'll see what he thinks.
It's funny. 2 fights into the UFC, and I remember Justin had very much the same impact. Win, lose, or draw right now, Michael, you become must-see television. And I think that is a huge deal for any fighter. And I know you feel that. I know you've already had fans reach out about that. When Michael Chandler fights, people want to watch. 2 fights into your UFC career, you've already become that guy, and that's got to feel good. I know it sucks to come off a loss. I know you want to avenge that loss to Charles Oliveira somewhere down the road. Obviously, I know you want to get that title. but it's got to feel good. 2 fights into your UFC career, and you've already become must-see television.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I have felt it. Trust me. You know, it's great, and it's a very humbling experience, because I feel like I've been that guy, and I've fought the exact same way, and I've fought exciting and put my best foot forward in every aspect of being a professional athlete since day one. And now I feel like I'm getting, you know, I don't want to say the recognition for it, but just, you know, it's being noticed more, which is great. And that's a testament to the UFC and how big the UFC platform is. You know, I will never be a guy who undervalues how big the platform is and how big of an opportunity that we have as UFC fighters. Because I've been outside the organization, I've seen the numbers, I've seen the differences, and a lot of guys can't quantify it because they only know the UFC. You know, they only know what it's like to fight for the UFC. So it's great. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it, and I don't want it to end anytime soon. We're gonna keep on keeping on, and hopefully blessing a bunch of people over the next couple of years and enjoying the process.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you so much for doing this. I cannot say thank you enough for doing this. Obviously, enjoy some downtime, enjoy some dad time, enjoy some husband time, get a vacation, get some good food. You are not cutting weight right now, so it is okay to indulge a little bit. Get some good food. I know you got a speaking engagement coming up. I saw that. I was looking at that seminar. That looked pretty awesome, by the way. So yeah, that looks all like you got that coming up. So you're going to be busy, but do enjoy some downtime. Do enjoy a vacation.
I'll try. Yeah, I don't do downtime or vacations very well, but you know, we will enjoy ourselves the best that we can. My wife and I, we don't settle down too much, but we're enjoying it. The biggest thing is just being together, being with our son, and man, it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll see you at the top.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you so much again for doing this. We will speak soon. I'm sure I was going to steal your line. I was like, we'll talk before the next fight and we'll see you at the top. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for doing this, and we will chat soon. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Damon. Appreciate it.